All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to tonight's show. My name is Alexa. I'm your head of online community here at Housecall Pro, and I'm your host for the evening update for home service professionals. Can you believe it's week 8? We've been doing this together for 8 weeks now. I'm joined by my co-host Roland. He's a co-founder of Housecall Pro, and Mel, who's our senior vice president of people. You can think of us as your in-house marketing, business, and HR experts. So each evening at 5 p.m. Pacific time, Monday through Thursday, we come at you live and we share the state of the world according to the home service industry. And then we focus on one topic or guest. Tonight, we are so excited to welcome Vaughn back to our show. He is an absolute fan favorite. And he's going to be talking about hiring landmines to watch out for during a recession economy. So this is going to be a really great topic. Make sure to stick around for it. If you are wondering where to watch past episodes, including ones that Brandon has been on himself, and he's brought some really awesome guests with him, go check out our YouTube page. Just type in Housecall Pro, and then it's Coronavirus Evening Update, and there's a whole playlist of the last 8 weeks of shows that we've done like this, with really great stuff in there for you guys. And if you're not already, make sure you are in the Coronavirus Facebook page. I'll drop the link there once Mel gets started on her evening update. But there's 2,900 pros in there, and it's still booming, and everyone is still really active in there. So make sure you hop in there, see what everyone is talking about. Other than that, I'm going to pass it over to Mel for your state of the world, and I will be back on with Brandon for the main portion of our show tonight.
Great. Thank you. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Melina Fairley, Senior Vice President of People at Housecall Pro. Please do feel free to call me Mel. And we do come to you live Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific. We give you a daily recap of the highlights of the news related to coronavirus, and then bring you great information and guests. You're in for a treat tonight with Brandon. He's been on a couple of other weeks, and we always get rave reviews. I'm especially excited about tomorrow night. We're going to have Gary Ridge, the CEO of WD-40. So there's a special surprise for you there. So with that said, I am not a reporter. I just play one here on Zoom every night, but I rather am a human resources professional. So I've been doing this sort of work for 20 years. I spent 15 of those years as the head of recruitment and training over at Trader Joe's, so a popular grocery store. So I'm really excited about tonight's topic of hiring. I'm also a homeowner and a mom of 4, and come to you live here from my home in northern San Diego. So let's get into your evening update for Monday, May 4th, 2020. The Johns Hopkins dashboard is reporting 3.5 million global cases and over 250,000 deaths worldwide. There's that. Great. You can see there's also a tab for recovered under deaths, and we're at over 1.1 million recovered worldwide.
So about a third.
Yeah. So in the US, we are at over 1.1 million, nearing 1.2 million confirmed cases, over 68,000 deaths, and 187,000 recovered. So yesterday we heard from President Trump that the initial prediction for the coronavirus death toll here in the US, he is moving that to about 100,000. This was during a town hall at Lincoln Memorial in Washington yesterday. Previously, we had heard the number 65,000, which we've surpassed. So new government report projects that cases will surge to about 200,000 per day by June 1st, with 3,000 deaths per day at that time. So some big numbers still ahead of us. President Trump also was reassuring Americans that it is safe for states to reopen with lots of new regulations and best practices. So he said, quote, "I really believe that you can go to parks, you can go to beaches, if you can stay away a certain amount." He noted that Americans have been wearing face masks and social distancing in recent weeks, and that is going to need to continue for a while, even as states reopen their economies. So we are seeing different countries at different stages. So we're starting to hear about the concept of travel bubbles, or bubbles, you may have also heard. Australia and New Zealand are reportedly considering a travel bubble that will allow individuals to travel between the two countries without requiring a quarantine upon arrival. So the idea is that, countries within the bubble would maintain low transmission risk and allow travel within that area without significantly increasing the risk of transmission overall. So this is something we're starting to hear more about.
Yeah, in Hawaii too. So if you go to Hawaii, you got to be in a quarantine for 14 days. But intra-island hopping,
Yeah.
you can go ahead and do. So that's kind of an example of that. I feel like people are starting to form these social bubbles. So it's kind of like an extended family. Where I live, we have a complex of 7 units, and we hang out together, and we have strict rules around you stay together, and that's it. You don't have any outside exposure, and then together, things can be a little less boring and a little easier to kind of like make it through things. But obviously, in this article, and we'll post this article here at CNN put out here, but they're saying that, just about 10 people or less. Beyond that, there's, a risk or an issue there. So we'll see more and more of this. I feel like it's becoming more socially acceptable to do this.
Yeah, also heard on NPR earlier today, they're talking about cell phone data and tracking people, and there definitely is some quarantine fatigue. They're seeing that travel is up 30% than in previous weeks. It's sort of May 1st hit, and people started driving around and getting out a little bit more. So we will keep you posted on how all the stats look and the numbers look as social distancing requirements are still in place, but things began to open again. So we'll let you know. There's definitely been an impact to the healthcare industry, which I'm sure is no surprise. So historic financial, crisis there, as most elective surgeries were postponed. The dentist office are closed. My kids haven't been to the orthodontist in months. Physicians stopped seeing patients regularly. So more than 200 hospitals have furloughed workers. And the result is that healthcare spending declined at an annualized rate of 18% in the first 3 months of the year. So there are also real health impacts as well for lots of these closures. Things like routine cancer screenings have decreased over the past several weeks. So screenings for breast cancer, cervical cancer, colon cancer decreased by between 86 and 94% compared to previous years. Now, as imagined, medical professionals fear that if this trend continues, those delayed screenings could result in a later diagnosis of these cancers and subsequently could have real impact to elevated mortality rates. So I know there are lots of folks who had routine appointments scheduled. In my family, we did, and lots of those have just been outright canceled. So we'll keep an eye for when those non-essential medical procedures are allowed to occur again. Roland, you were going to show us about the trades health.
Yeah, so we're going to jump in here. So every single week we update this data set, and this data set comes directly from our software average across all of the pros. So I'm going to share my screen here with you guys because every week it updates. It's just always interesting to see what's kind of going on. We'll post this link here, but we call this the Trades Health Index. And with the Trades Health Index here, you can see exactly the trailing or the leading, and then the trailing indicator. So how many jobs scheduled per week and how many are completed per week. The blue line is 2019, the red line is 2020. And so if you see the difference between them, you can see kind of the decrease here. So if you take 112 minus 88, you can see here 24% off. So we're still about 24% off where we were at this point in 2019. But as you can see, there's an uptrend here, an uptick. So if you're curious, you guys can go take a look at your own specific trade here. So you can see the data by trade and also by state. So if you want to take a look at it by state, if we've got enough data, then we show the state as well here. So you guys can use this, and we'll post this link. But it's kind of a good little place to kind of check and see with what you're feeling with your business is what we're seeing across all of the pros in the business too. So post this little resource for you guys, but it's positive to see that it's trending upwards, which is good.
Yeah, that dip a couple of weeks back, that was scary. That was not a good time. Okay, Robin says, I got Starbucks for the first time this weekend after 8 weeks. Woohoo! So hopefully we'll start to see more things like that. More restaurants are opening up. I know a lot are still doing takeout. California is still under pretty strict lockdown, but it is very encouraging to see some of the progress that's being made. I'd love to welcome Brandon back on for a conversation with us. He's gonna pop back up. Yay!
Oh.
Welcome.
Hey.
I love having Brandon on, and I know all of our pros here too. So I'm just going to do a quick little intro of Brandon, what we're going to be covering today, and then we'll dive into the topic. Any questions that you have that pop up during this time, if you are on Zoom, make sure you put them in the Q&A and you upvote them, and then Brandon, Mel, Roland, and I will answer them at the end. And if you're on Facebook, make sure you just put them in the ongoing Facebook live feed, and I will pull them from there, and I'll let you know, hey, this is in the queue. So, okay, Brandon is the Chief Strategist at Conquer, where he helps small business owners systemize and scale their companies through personalized mentorship and training programs. He's actually brought on a lot of his Conquer coaches. It's a huge program. So if you want to go back and just type in Brandon Vaughn into our coronavirus playlist, and he's brought on, I think, 3 different coaches that have just been so helpful to our viewers. He's actually joining us tonight to talk about how to overcome 3 main challenges that you're going to begin to face as restrictions start easing up. So the logistics of bringing employees back to work, quickly training them to catch up with the post-shutdown demand, and of course, hiring people taking jobs they may not like because their field is currently in their field of expertise is in a recession. So that's what you have to look forward to tonight. I'm just going to start it off here. So Brandon, let's talk about what you've been seeing when it's come to hiring people over the last 8 weeks and then the current state of it all.
Yeah. Well, hey, first off, thank you for having me. And secondly, major kudos to you guys. I mean, you've been doing this daily, and that's insane for 8 weeks. Like, where are all your kids and stuff hiding? Mel, where are all your kids?
I locked them up. The kids are not the problem. It's the cats.
It's just absolutely amazing what you guys are doing to provide value to the pros. And I'm honored to you guys keep asking me back. So appreciate that as well. So yeah, I mean, as far as navigating employee issues right now, I think the expression that I use to kind of theme this discussion is avoid landmines. And I think that there's a few hiring landmines that kind of exist out there in the hiring landscape that we have to be very, very cautious about, because we're kind of going through some unprecedented times. And I think Mel would agree with me. Not Michelle, Mel, would agree with me on, that we have to be cautious as to how we rehire people, bringing them back on, being careful not to discriminate, making sure that we have some good policies and procedures of bringing people back on or choosing not to bring people back on when work starts picking up again. Because for some people, they could look at this opportunity as, well, you know what, so-and-so was always bad, so we're just not going to hire him back on, just let him, float out there into the distance. Whereas in some situations that could cause some liability issues if it could be construed as some kind of discrimination. So I think that there's some really unique challenges that we face with now feeling like we're competing against unemployment as well. There's workers, laborers that right now, have employees that are making more money on unemployment or on some kind of, work relief program, and they're making more money than if they were actually working. And so bringing them back on at a higher risk, not being at home and having them work, like what kind of complications does that kind of add to it? So the hiring landscape has changed, and in some ways it hasn't. All the same general principles when it comes to managing a team, having a great company culture, making sure that you have your policies and procedures really documented and well put in place. All of these general principles in the HR still apply, but I think it's even more needed to be extra cautious when kind of moving forward and maybe over communicate some of these issues to the team. Yeah.
I would just say too, as you guys are listening to us, if you guys are like, what he just said is happening to me, or, oh yeah, this is something that I foresee maybe happening, or if you question about that landmine, put it here in the Q&A, because we're going to do an ABA at the end of this here, which is ask Brandon anything. So as he's saying things and you're nodding your head, watching, throw them in here, because we're going to go tackle them, because now you've got, between Brandon and Mel and Alexa, we're going to get you guys the answers.
Love it.
Yeah. Right. And we're also hearing from a lot of our pros the added complication of going out and getting, the PPP loan, which requires you to have it forgiven, to spend it on your people, to spend it. It's the Paycheck Protection Program, right? So it's to protect the paychecks. And they're getting in touch with folks who are indicating that they don't want to come back because of what they're earning outside of the business at the time. So this certainly magnifies the challenge.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been hearing from people too is, especially with regards to the PPP program, some clarifications have been made from the IRS on the tax implications of the PPP program, how those funds will be taxed. Will they be taxed as income? How will they be taxed as expenses? And the clarification point is that on all the expenses that you use those PPP funds from to, for payroll and those other things, those aren't tax deductible. So even, it's almost kind of the same as if it was taxed income. I mean, it's free money, right? Free money. But there's also some situations where a business owner has to kind of sit down and crunch the numbers to figure out what really is the greater benefit: to allow my employees to stay on unemployment, rather than just bringing them on just to kind of do nothing, not really do any revenue generating activities, but just to kind of keep them busy. When then on the back end, they're not going to be able to write that off, and they, will eventually pay taxes on that part of it. And I mean, these things are changing on a daily basis. So it's really hard to say this is the way you need to progress, because next week Congress could say that there's some amendments to the IRS statutes that will completely change the dynamic of a lot of these things. So we have to kind of take them one day at a time. But I think that there's a few ways that we can focus on avoiding some of these landmines that might be in front of us, which I think would be fun to talk about.
Mm-hmm. So we can start with the logistics of it all. The logistics of bringing employees back to work. What are the best practices here that our viewers need to really pay attention to and put into action?
And what's the biggest landmine in this?
Ooh, biggest. That's a tough one. Mel, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this, because you're a lot more of a consummate HR professional than I am. You have way more experience in my realm. What are your thoughts on bringing people back in?
Most of you probably don't have a situation where you have guaranteed recall rights for employees. I mean, unions do. So if you worked in an environment like that previously, that you have seniority, and then layoffs are by seniority. And then there are recall rights that as the business expands again, you are required to recall people in the same order based on tenure. But most of us as private employers with non-union, you likely don't have that unless you had it as part of your separation paperwork. So in some cases, when people will do a furlough or a layoff, they may say, hey, you will maybe recalled. But most of the time, if you're using forms that you've been provided by local legal counsel, most of the time you probably don't have a recall requirement, in which case you do have more discretion as to who you bring back when, based on their abilities and contribution. So that's one of the big distinctions is do you have employees that have a recall right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Some things I'll add to that is I think that some performance issues, if you decide not to bring back an employee off of furlough status because of past performance issues, maybe they had a really poor performance or they just were slackers, you still have to kind of be a little bit cautious, especially in some states in particular, because you don't want any employee looking at it from the thread of discrimination. Whether it is race, religion, age, any of those other federally protected discrimination type categories. Because oftentimes if that legal battle does come up, in some states, like for instance, Oregon, they're very pro-employee, and even just getting involved in an attorney and having an attorney pick up on these things, oftentimes it's more expensive to lose than it is to even get involved with it. So, making sure that you are documenting why you're hiring certain ones on and why you're not hiring other ones on, and keeping really good records of bringing those employees back in. You may be tempted to, well, this person's older, we don't want to bring them back in because they're at a higher risk of COVID-19, but there's been some really, really specific regulations preventing this type of discrimination, that even the employee that they've been clarified. You cannot do this, but that doesn't mean that you can't communicate concerns to employees and talk to them and work these things out and get things signed off in writing. But you just have to navigate carefully who you decide to bring on and who you don't decide to bring back on.
Yeah, and we actually had those questions come up very early in the pandemic, people wanting to sort of send their out of the goodness of their heart, wanting
Right.
to send home their older employees, send home their pregnant employees, and all of those. You might think you're doing that to protect, but it can actually, be seen as discriminatory, preventing them from having gainful employment because of age or medical condition is something that you cannot do.
Yeah, and one thing we've seen come up too, which is I've been asked all the time, Roland, I kind of don't want to bring this person back, and I'd rather hire someone else. Would that still make my loan forgivable or not? And can I do that? So how do you guys feel about that?
If they decide not to bring someone back on, will it still make them forgivable?
Yeah. So let's say they had 5 headcount
Yes.
previously. And so now they're looking at bringing people back, but they're decided one person hasn't met, their standards. They don't want to bring them back. Are they able to hire someone new and still qualify as a forgivable? Or maybe they say, no, I don't want to come back.
They tried to bring all 5, but yes, I mean, that what they're looking at is 2 conditions. One is payroll costs, so the amount of money you're paying out. And the second is full-time equivalent. So, called FTEs, and it's not literally a count of people, it's a count of the full-time equivalent. So if you have, 4 40-hour people, that's 4 FTEs. If you have 4 40-hour people plus 2 20-hour people, that's 5 FTEs, so full-time equivalents. So they're not looking at the Social Security numbers of the individuals. It's not the, keep Roland employed plan. It's just the payroll protection plan, the paycheck protection plan. So they're just looking to create jobs and keep jobs. So you can, especially maybe also the jobs you're doing may have shifted slightly, where you need more people to go and perform services like we heard Mark Cuban suggesting to our folks of more disinfecting and things. So maybe you need a different skill set than the folks that you had previously. So if someone leaves or if you don't bring them back, you can rehire someone else and count them as a full-time equivalent.
I think there's a good leadership argument here to be had, or a good leadership point, I should say. Really, communication with your team is so critical of making sure that you're talking to your team members, because you have 2 things that we wrestle with as business owners. The one side, actually 3 things. One is the health of our family as a business owner, the health and safety, our income level personally as a business owner. And for every pro that's watching this that is a business owner, you created this business and it is a tool for you and for your personal family. First and foremost, you have to remember that is really what this vehicle is for. Now, that doesn't mean you can be heartless with your employees. You still want to take care of your employees and consider their needs. But first and foremost, you have to understand what's best for your family. Second is the health of the business itself. It's its own separate entity. If the business is unhealthy, it causes all kinds of problems and can lead to the business dying. So you have to protect your business entity itself to make sure that it can be self-sustaining. Really, thirdly, and I know that this is kind of a hard pill to swallow, and it was definitely a hard pill to swallow for me because I felt bad, is your employees' income levels and their, that part of it. That really is the third consideration that needs to be made. And that hierarchy is very important. Again, it doesn't mean that you are not serving your employees or just kind of casting them out to the wind. But when you're looking at the greater good of the health of your business, everyone loses if you make poor decisions in trying to keep everyone on and keep everyone employed and make sure everyone is taking home an income, and then it bankrupts the company. Now everyone loses, including you as your own family. So because we do have so many options for employees right now with unemployment benefits and with these types of options, really, we have a lot more choices as business owners to be able to make sure that our business is staying healthy. So we may feel this pressure to bring back our employees on prematurely, when at the end of the day, it may be hurting our business and ultimately hurting them in the long run. So if there's an employee that really says, you know what, I feel way more safer being home, I don't want to come into work, I'm getting paid more money, you as a business owner, as the right to protect the business and also yourself personally, really should seriously go out and look at getting other people onto the team in this time of need, and not feel like, well, if I can't bring this person back, I'm in big trouble, which kind of leads us to some of our other landmines that we're going to watch out for. But as a leader, you kind of have to make those tough decisions as to protect the health of the business.
Yeah, and along that, I would recommend that any of the offers that you're making to your former employees, that you do so in writing. And that if they call you up and say, hey man, I just can't, you say, hey, great, can you reply to that email for me and just put that in writing for me, just so I have that. I want to make sure that I keep those for my records. It's just a good idea in general business, just to have those things documented. But in case you need them, you don't want to have to go trying to string together a bunch of text messages or voicemails. You're going to want to have just a nice, hey, here's the offer, here, this is what it is, come on back, and have reply back to you in writing.
Document everything.
That's going to be my next question for you, Mel and Brandon. Let's talk about the actual conversation you're going to be having with these employees once they're furloughed and it's time to start bringing them back on. You have two sides, the ones that you do want to bring back on, and then Mel, you mentioned there might be some that you don't want to bring back on. They may be expecting to be brought back on. How did those conversations differ? What's some good practices for talking to people?
Well, I think that, first and foremost, being transparent is key. And really how you've handled your company culture and your environment before this all happened is going to make a drastic difference on how these conversations go. Because if you have a really, black hole type culture that's just not really there, and it's you're going to probably be faced with a lot of employees that are like, forget you, I'm not coming back to work, I'm staying home, I make more money here. Whereas if you have a fantastic company culture, you may have a little bit more loyalty on your team and people that are eager to get back to work. They want to help you out. They want to do this in the business. And honestly, I'd say you should probably look at this a little bit as a cue as to how healthy your company culture is, not to minimize people who want to stay home for health reasons and safety reasons, but you really want to make sure that you are communicating in the same thread that you have already implemented previously with your company culture, which may be hard now, but you can start moving that direction. And it really starts with really clear, candid, transparent conversations. And if someone says, hey, look, I don't want to come back, say, hey, I absolutely understand that. We want you to be safe. We want you to make sure that your family's taken care of. I understand that this is really good for you. I hope you won't have any hard feelings, and understanding that we also have to make sure that the business is protected as well. Mm-hmm. So this may mean that we're going to hire someone, and I can't guarantee you that your position will still exist here. I just want you to be really crystal clear on that. And I hope you understand, but we have to protect the business and make sure that the business is healthy so that everyone can stay employed long-term. And I think having those tough conversations up front with people are going to be important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think some people are going to be surprised at how wonderful the culture is that they've created. And there are going to be some business owners who are going to be disappointed that they don't have a stronger and healthier culture, and consider it a wake-up call. And what an opportunity. And in fact, if you are in one of those situations where you're not real happy with how things are going, it's not too late to start over and to say to your employees, hey, look, this has given me some time to reflect, and I don't really like all of the culture that I've created here, and I want to do better. And this is the time for us to do it. So if you'll have me, if you'll join with me, let's make a difference. Let's do things differently. And I want to be more open or more transparent, or get to know you better, or whatever it is that you think that you have, not lived up to in your own expectations. You can do a reset.
Yeah.
Good feedback. I feel like we should just capture that part that you just said and write a little script, because I think you say it really eloquently. And I think sometimes for people, that face-to-face or Zoom-to-Zoom kind of conversation sometimes can be quite difficult. And sometimes having something to kind of fall back on, or even if you do it via email, sometimes it's a lot easier for people. And then you get the added benefit of, it's in writing as well. But obviously you guys should all endeavor to have that face-to-face talk and not just do all this via email or via text.
Yeah.
Like Brandon's script that he just rattled off the top of his head was just fantastic. And then what I do is I'd follow up an email afterwards, like, hey, as I mentioned, it was great to talk with you earlier. Completely respect, all the hard decisions that you're making, as we talked about. And then I would just outline a little bit about the conversation. So you're not introducing anything new. You're just summarizing and writing.
Yeah. Love that. I love hanging out with you, Mel. We should hang out more often and talk nerdy HR stuff.
That's what I do. That's my passion place right there. Nerdy HR stuff.
Yeah, I love it.
But what I love about speaking with you guys about it is you really break it down into terms that are understandable. Yes, you rattle, like Mel, I wrote down like FTE and like these terms I've never heard about, but you're both very good at defining them and applying them. Let's talk about our next landmine. So our next landmine is about training employees to catch up with post-shutdown demand.
Yeah, this is one that probably is one of my most passionate type of topics that I like to speak on, because this is the difference between an owner feeling crazy when they're hiring people versus a really smooth process. When we had 70 employees and our business was growing, we hired 25 people onto our team over the course of 30 days, ramping up for our busy season, which to a lot of, even to me several years back seemed impossible that we would ever be saying something like that. But dialing in your training systems and having a really detailed outline on what happens with your technician on day one. They show up at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's not like John, you go out with Sally today and Sally's going to show you the ropes, and you guys good? John, Sally, okay. Yep. You guys go together and you go do it. And it's a dumpster fire when it comes to training employees, because there's no systemized process. There's no, standard operating procedures for how you train an employee. So the thing you can do right now, if you're stuck at home, it's even better time to do it. You have your cell phone, you have all your equipment sitting in your driveway, get out there and start mowing your own lawn and videoing the process for employees. Start getting in front of the windows and squeegeeing the windows and washing the window, and have your daughter hold your camera phone and just start recording some of these things and start building out your training video library. When we brought someone onto the team, they sat in our office for 2 full days watching videos and taking tests and really orienting themselves in the company. And no one in the company had to really say hardly anything, because we already set it into a recorded form. So the best time to make these training programs is while you're training someone or while you're kind of stuck at home. These are the best things to work on your business during these times while you're quarantined at home. So where someone can just come in, go through all your training programs, and you can get someone up to lead status very, very quickly. Think about how McDonald's would do it, right? You have your training videos and your online tests and all the checklists, and make it really, really easy for anyone to come in and get up to speed very quickly with your systems.
I feel like Ken, who we were talking to last week, who's got $100 million a year HVAC business, in several locations. Ken Goodrich. Yeah. I mean, he was all about the checklist and just getting everything, just literally boom, 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 just a punchline of stuff. But what you're mentioning is really important, because, I feel like when you have this time now, it's really easy to start creating the stuff. Even if you're starting to onboard a new person because you're hiring again, or you're replacing that one employee you didn't want to bring back on board. Now you can create that fairly easily. And obviously there's going to be more demand once things start to turn around a little bit, but use the time that you're spending doing the job you're already doing to record a training video, so you don't have to do it again and again and again. And I feel like there's a golden nugget that Ken dropped, is one that you just dropped, and I keep hearing it over and over again. So I can't stress it enough for people to use checklists like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
People always talk about I wish I could clone my best employee, right? Well, this might be the time where maybe your best employee has a little bit of extra time. They can work on cloning themselves during quarantine, and you can unleash the power to create some training onto someone else who's really terrific at whatever the thing is that they do for your business. So don't feel like you've got to know how to do everything to help create the training. Get people close to the job to work on that as well.
Yeah, and I want to say something to that, because I think everyone is in search for this perfect unicorn employee. That's like the rock star employee, they imagine what they look like and how they act and how they behave, and they just pick up stuff like that on the job site and everything. And they're never satisfied with their hires ever, because it's never that person. Mm-hmm. Chances are that person doesn't exist and doesn't want to come work for you. Just facts. Chances are that you actually are going to hire someone who their dream is not to be a roof cleaner, not to be a window cleaner, not to be in the maid service, that their dream job is not to be an HVAC technician or a plumber or any of these other types of services. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that you find these people that may even be B players, and then you have A+ systems and A+ training systems. Because, the way I liken it to people is, how many in this room love taking tests, in school? How many people love taking tests? Liars. Actually, I believe Alexa that you do love taking tests. But let me ask the question again. How many people love taking tests if you have cheat sheets and have all the answers on a piece of paper?
Even
right?
more.
Everybody does. So the more that you can make checklists and cheat sheets and these types of things to make your B players get an A+ score, because you give them all the answers and make it so easy for them, the better, and we see pilots do this before they take off. They have their checklist, even though they've flown, 50,000 flights, they still go through and checklist off every single thing. So I can't stress the importance enough of putting those good training systems in place. Then hiring people becomes easy. It just becomes a funnel, and you just funnel them in and you just let them go. And then you're not so worried about if someone randomly quits or someone, does something on the job where you got to get rid of them, because you can find more. You can find more to bring them in.
Also less investment of your time. So
Yeah.
if you can get people up to speed quicker and you don't have to spend weeks on ride-alongs side by side, all of a sudden now you can double, triple, quadruple your hiring and onboarding.
Yeah.
And from the employee side, having systems to come into, whether I'm new or whether I'm an existing employee, that's setting the tone for this next phase of your business, this next season post-corona. Over the last few weeks, especially having Jocko, we've been talking a lot about employee ownership, how to have your employees take ownership over the job that they're doing. This is a great way to do that. If you give them the tools, they're going to be a lot more likely to show up to the job ready to go with their checklist, because they know what the heck they're supposed to be doing that day. So for all parties involved, not just you easing more work for yourself, but also for your employees. No one wants to show up to their first day of work and have absolutely no idea what's going on. They might not show up the next day.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
And then the most interesting topic or the most interesting landmine to unpack, because I didn't even realize this was a thing, Brandon, is hiring people taking jobs that they don't actually want to take. Is this something our pros need to be worried about, and how do they handle it?
Yes. This is something that people should be on the lookout for. So let me paint a scenario for you. You have a restaurant business that's gone completely, the waiters, the wait staff, they're not working anywhere. They're not a cook. They're not still cooking in the kitchen. They're just furloughed, just laid off. What's the unemployment percentage at right now? It's really high. I mean, there's
20
like
some
million. Yeah. So it's super high. You have all these people that are unemployed. They want to take care of their family. Maybe they're on unemployment. Maybe they're not, but they want to work. And so if their industry is not hiring because they're one of the really severely impacted industries, they're just going to go take a job. And if they take a job and then their industry does come back to life again, and the jobs that they are originally trained in start rehiring, are they going to stay with you? Maybe, maybe not. They might jump ship. And I have a feeling that we may see, the hiring pool is going to be big, but I have a feeling that our retention statistics that we're going to see for employees that, shift careers and shift jobs just because of the natural environment of a recession, as soon as that, as their industry kind of returns to some normalcy, they'll be constantly checking Craigslist and Indeed every single evening, trying to find the job they actually want, because they're not wanting to be out in the field doing labor type work. So I think that for business owners and CEOs, company culture is going to be more important than ever. And how you treat your employees, how you engage your employees is going to be more important than ever. And then also being really clear in some of your screening processes. Some people out of desperation, they're going to lie in their interviews. They're going to lie on their resumes, just like, a lot of candidates may possibly do. But doing those few extra steps of due diligence in the interviewing process to really communicate to them if they're really planning on staying for a long term. And there's some ninja questions that you can kind of ask for that part. But that is an important thing to consider when you're hiring someone, is really taking a look at their background and finding out if this is someone that's going to stay with you, or if this is just I don't want to say one night stand, because that's not the right word, but if this is
not proof, Brandon.
this is basically the business equivalent, right? Of just, just being involved and then really looking for the next thing. And I think that in this economy, it's a landmine to watch out for.
But
also, all right, Mel, ninja question. Ninja question.
Ninja question?
Yeah. So Brandon mentioned a ninja question. So we're going to throw a curveball to Mel because she wasn't expecting this. So what ninja question could you ask during the interview process that can help you figure out if this is something they're just doing for a paycheck to kind of hold them over until their true line opens up like a chef, or is this more of a permanent career switch?
Well, I'm just going to flag the even concern about it, because we've talked about how you might mitigate that being such an issue if you've got the checklist and you can onboard people more quickly. Look, if you say it takes 6 months for someone to get going in your business, that's a problem, right?
Preach
You
it,
can get
Mel.
that to 6 days, 6 weeks, anything. Just make some improvements there. And then, I want to know, hey, this might not be what you're looking to do in life. And I get that. And I will absolutely respect that. Are you willing to give me the best of what you've got for the days that you're here? Like while we're together, are you all in? Because I will be all in for you, and I'm going to invest in you. And that investment will pay back. That'll pay back with someone giving you 2 weeks notice, 3 weeks notice, to go take something else. They'll refer someone who could take their place, right? So I'd always rather have someone, someone great for 6 months than someone good for 6 years. So get great
Truth bomb.
people and then unleash them to, go follow their dreams someday if they want, but hope that you've trained them and they've learned and your culture is strong, that they're going to help find their own replacement. But ninja questions, I like questions that just get to the heart of who a person is, because I can't change your heart and soul with a checklist, right? So I ask people, how do you have fun at work? Because what I want to hear is that fun comes not at the expense of their coworkers, the expense of the customer, but it's fun that includes the customer. It's fun that includes their coworkers. That shows me that it's someone who is a joy to be around. I love asking that. And then I also truly love talking to references. And there is such a misconception that no one will tell you anything because everyone's so afraid of being sued. That is not true. Great people have great references. They have great references for days. If you can't get a reference, there's a problem. And you call someone and you say, hey, look, I'm really interested in hiring Brandon. He and I have spent some good time together, but you worked with him for 3 years. So you're going to know him better than I do. Help me understand how I can make him successful in his first few months. Tell me more about Brandon. Tell me about the things that he really shines at, that he's great at. Tell me about the things that he's still working on that might take me a while to stumble upon. You can give me that information. I can help better set him up for success. People will talk to you. Great people have great references. So don't be shy. Talk to someone that they work with. And then I'm okay with switchers, with people who are looking to try something out. Even someone who's been doing it forever, there are no guarantees that they're not going to go work for the competitor, if something changes. So just focus on culture and then get that training system down, like Brandon said, because then you're going to be less fearful of making the wrong hire because it's going to take 6 months to get them up to speed. No, if you've got that worked out, you're going to be able to make bolder decisions and to choose people who, you feel inspired around and that are going to need training, but you've got that training system down.
I'm so in love with that answer. That was beautiful. That was really, really well said. And you nailed it. It's one of the reasons why I think, the training systems are so important. I love the reference thing too, by the way. One of the questions that we used to ask our references was, hey, John a lot better than we do. One of the things we really want to make sure is that, it's a good fit for the business, but we also ultimately want to make sure it's a good fit for John. John way better than I do. You know what kind of job he would thrive under and which one he would just hate. The last thing I want to do for John is to have him come aboard on a company doing work that he just hates. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah, absolutely. So let me tell you a little bit about, what his day-to-day is going to look like. Do you think that's a job that John will love? Do you think that's something that he'll really enjoy and kind of thrive in that environment? And that can be certainly telling, just asking those references, those questions too. I think that on the company culture side, having that good fit, ask the ninja questions that find out if the person's going to be a good culture fit. They align with your core values. They value the same things that you value. One of the things we did for all of our employees is we bought them a subscription to lynda.com. And while we actually interviewed them and talked to them, we talked about it. We said, look, we get it. Not everyone grows up dreaming to be a window cleaner or a roof cleaner, but one of the things that we really love to do is find out, like, what's your dream job look like? What are some of your dream skill sets you'd love to unpack to further your career? And they would say, I've always wanted to do web development. I'd want to do graphic design, video editing. And we say, awesome. While you're here, you're going to have free access to a platform called lynda.com. You can literally watch, near college level courses and level up your education in these. It's completely free. We have office computers upstairs. You can go into our business library. We had business library books that they could come in and check out for free anytime they wanted. And we would help them level up their career. For anyone watching this, go buy the book Dream Manager by Matthew Kelly. It is a powerful, powerful book. And it talks about a janitorial company that had a 400% turnover every single year. Every employee turned over 4 times every year, and how they reversed that completely. And it's all about focusing on employees' dreams. It's like one of the best books on company culture that I've ever read. Really good stuff.
Well, you know, I spent 15 years at Trader Joe's. So it's a grocery store. You bag groceries, you take out the trash, you stock shelves, you clean out the bottom of the dairy case, which has these things that everyone calls dairy diapers because they're like a plastic wet diaper. Not pretty. Nobody says, hey, when I grow up, I want to clean dairy diapers and you know, take out trash and stock shelves and work nights and weekends. But the company has incredible retention, and that's because they let people be themselves every day. They hire people with personalities. They let them bring their personality to work, and they treat employees really well. And it's not just pay and benefits. It's just truly letting people, you know, really shine and try new things and learn and grow while they're working for you. And we knew that, you know, every person we hired is likely to go do something else. It was sort of a stop, you know, on your journey. But then we'd end up having people who make a career out of it and are running stores and providing for their families and relocating all over the country, opening new stores for Trader Joe's. And it all started because they were bagging groceries, but really just letting people feel like they have some ownership over the work that they do, allowing them to be prideful at work, to have fun, you know, to enjoy themselves, really makes a difference. I mean, and you control that. That costs nothing. To let people have their personalities at work and, you know, enjoy working for you as a boss is just about your energy and effort. It's not about a dollar.
So Mel,
let's take
Brandon
on the road, Mel. Let's
yeah, you two
on the road. You're hired. Let's go.
I'll bring the snacks.
Man, I mean, I hope the business owners that are watching this, I really, really, really hope that everything that Mel just said, you really take deep into yourself, because this is one of those things that I wish I knew. The time when I had the panic attack on my couch and said employees suck and I quit, and I lost over half of my employees while we were booked out 2 weeks or 2 months in the middle of our busy season. Like, I wish I had this information before. And this is such gold and can save you not only heartache, but tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to your bottom line over the course of years, because company culture is everything. We don't sell the squeegees and the pressure washers and the wrenches and, you know, the mowers. We really sell people. I mean, we sell services, and that people component is so insanely important in the service industry. So that was so good. Man, I think I want to record this and go back and watch this just so I can remind myself that it's really, really good stuff.
It'll be on YouTube by tomorrow, Brandon. You can do that.
and I always love when Mel joins us, especially when she's talking about people. And from the employee side, if I'm looking for a plumbing job, HVAC job, window cleaning job, what a differentiator in a JD, in a job description. If the lynda.com thing, if I knew, hey, I'm going to be allowed to work on other skills I'm passionate about while putting food on my family's table and doing the manual work I'm signed up to do, like, that's incredible. I don't think I've ever seen that on a job description for like window cleaning or for plumbing. There's plenty of those out there. People are just posting like plumber needed. Could you imagine if you just added that little bit onto it, how many more quality people you would get? I think it's incredible.
You'd also attract the types of people that are lifelong learners, which is ultimately what you want to.
Yeah. We probably have some questions from our audience to get to, but I'm going to give you one more little nugget. The reverse reference check. So I talked about reference checks. Anyone that I've hired to come work for me, I offer the opportunity for them to talk to someone who doesn't work for me anymore, but can tell you all about what I'm like to work for as a boss. So to Brandon's point. And also, this is something that you can do with people who have left your business and who are off doing that other thing. They're doing that web design that they wanted to do, or maybe they're running their own shop. They moved somewhere, and you can say, hey, this is an important decision. I know you have options. I would like to put you in touch with someone who used to work for me that started right in the position that you and I are talking about. Yeah. They were here for 2 years, and this is what they're doing now. And I'd love for you to be able to ask them any and all questions about what this job is really like. I mean, imagine if you're allowed to check the references of your future boss. I mean, this is something that really can have an impact. And then when you know that you're doing that, you remember that, right? Like, I'm building my references every day as a leader when I show up, and how I treat my team is how, you know, they're going to be able to talk about me in the future. So you leave a legacy whether you want to or not. You know, are you proud of the legacy that you're living today?
Love that.
that public version of that also lives online these days too at
Glassdoor.
glassdoor.com. So it's not
true.
just from it's not just from people that necessarily work for you directly or that you're directly the boss, but it's the entire company as a brand. And that's why it's important to hire people that are managing other people, also have the same values that you do, because that will reflect. And ultimately, if you're successful, it's all going to be online anyways.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Okay.
all,
Oh, sorry, Brandon. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. We've unpacked this to death, I know, but I start geeking out when we talk about employees and company culture. So I'd be here all night.
Well, I mean, let's continue on with the questions on that. So first we have a question from Lino. What profession were you in and are you currently in, Brandon?
Me personally?
Mm-hmm.
So I owned an exterior cleaning business, started in 2012. Basically built that from 0 employees to over 70 employees over the course of about 5.5 years. Ended up selling that business. And now my current profession is I help other service businesses do the same thing, grow and automate and scale their companies. And we do that through a program that's called Conquer. We have a couple hundred service business owners that work together in like a mastermind kind of format, share resources, documents, tools, lots of education, lots of content, kind of similar to this thread, around building a service business, getting out of the field, having more time freedom.
Awesome. Mel and Brandon and Roland, I'll pitch this all to you. Mel more on the onboarding side, like the people side, and Brandon, yours is probably more trade specific, but what are some examples of checklists you could give employees, whether that's on their first day or within the first week?
So checklists that I personally love is all the things that your employees forget while they're on the job. I think that most employees actually do want to do a good job. Despite them dropping the ball and forgetting things, checklists are a mega kindness to employees. So we had checklists for beginning of day routine, checklist of every single thing they need to make sure they had. We had inventory checklists, vehicle management checklists going through every morning. They would go through around their vehicle and walk through every little component, check the tire pressure, check the oil levels, all those things, just to make sure that they weren't be driving down the road and something disastrous happened. Also inventory management checklists. So in the back of our vehicles, I'm super OCD. So every single bin was labeled, and I created a checklist of all my inventory in the back of all of our vehicles that went from like left to right, top to bottom. So they would like literally go here, this bin, this bin, this bin, this bin, and mark off and check and make sure. So that you never have an employee that gets out to a job site and says, oh, dang, I forgot my sponges. I forgot my soap. Oh, shoot, it's all the way back at the shop. I don't know how many times I had that question before we put checklists in place. So beginning of the day routines, end of day routines, making sure that, everything gets restocked so that when they can show up in the morning, be, ready and good to go. On the job checklists, making sure that they do a final walkthrough with the customer. They walk around and check for, ladders and poles and stuff that they may leave scattered around the property. Making sure that they knock on all the neighbors' doors and do their 5 rounds and leave the flyers out. And the nice thing about like what Housecall Pro has with the checklists is you can automate this stuff right into the jobs. So you can have your technicians check off these things as they go through them in order to close out a job. And that's a mega powerful feature. And if you're not utilizing it, go utilize it, because it's amazing when you just level up your whole quality of, control, or your whole quality of the job that gets done when you have checklists in place.
And think about all the checklists that need to be created now in this new world, right? This new world of COVID-19. I mean, there are all the new safety protocols and things that aren't second nature initially. And so I bet everyone's starting to create those checklists anyway. So start with those. They're brand new. You haven't done it before. So what is going to be the new expectation and process? But when expectations are clear, then decisions are easier, right? If I'm an employee, I know very clearly what is expected of me. I can make the decision what to do. If I don't know, then I'm just guessing, and I might get what I think is get it right, and you might think that it's not. So get those expectations out there really, really clearly.
The nice thing is they're binary. So it's either you did it or you didn't.
Right.
And so there's no like, did you do it a little bit or kinda? No, it's like, yep, you did it, you did it, you did it. It just saves a lot of decision-making time. And then also what Mel said too, like what's expected. I feel like when I had my painting business in college years, I would do a checklist with my customer. So as I would walk around the home, I would have my own checklist, and it would be like, here's the eaves, here's the fascia boards. You know, I'd do it, and I'd have the homeowner hold the checklist and literally do it themselves. And then at the end of it, I would take them back all the way around, and they just checked all the things that happened. And that way, at the end of the job, when I got the check, everything was checked off. I got the check. It was really, really clean. So, I'm definitely a big fan.
How about on the employer side or on the owner side? What are some checklists that our pros should be making for themselves to prepare for their employees coming back?
Preparing for themselves before hiring on new people?
Before hiring on new people and just preparing themselves for this post-shutdown economy in their business.
I'd say, you know, for starters, some of the points that we talked about today of, you know, making sure that you've, you know, documented your reasons for why you hiring certain people back and why you aren't hiring certain people back. Probably a checklist item would be making sure that you have some really good SOPs in place, like making sure you have a good employee handbook and manual, which is an important thing. But I don't know. That's kind of a unique question. What are your guys' thoughts?
I'd take the time to create a hiring rubric for your most commonly hired into position and then work out from there. So, you know, before you're sitting down in front of someone, it's really easy to get biased, right? Like, I really like them, therefore I like their qualifications, whereas maybe what you were looking for was a different set. So getting clear about what you're looking for and why, and getting that written down as a checklist to yourself to sort of just keep, it's like a letter to my future self, like, dear Melina, these are the things that you were looking for in an employee. And then you can use that list against the person sitting in front of you in an interview, which can be really helpful so that you don't end up making unconsciously biased decisions, you know, against your own self, past advice to your future self.
So it was really good to do a retrospective on that too. So maybe a year down the road, go back and go like, oh my gosh, let me look at the rubric that I did for my star employees. And that helps reinforce the cycle of bringing back more and more better employees.
And remember, nobody bats 1,000 in hiring. Nobody. I mean, even those of us who have been doing it for many, many years. So don't beat yourself up too much. Do the after action, take a look and say, did I even follow my own rubric in the hiring of this person? But people are complicated and life is complex. So you're not always going to get it right. Just try to get better as you go.
So here's an interesting question from JP Patel. He's from Chicago. I'm hiring a salesperson and he wants us to provide him a car to run calls. So what should I do? He is willing to work 100% on commissions. Is there any way he can generate the leads? Roland, do you want to take a stab at that one?
Well, I would just
willing to work 100% on commissions. I'm curious if JP could tell me what industry he's in. But we had every single one of my salespeople were on commission only, and we gave them a company car, a company cell phone, and a company credit card for incidentals. And they had like a $300 a month stipend for, you know, incidentals for, you know, buying little swag or, you know, little things for customers. And we paid them flat commission on everything. And, you know, it really kind of depends on your total compensation package, you know, whether it makes sense to include that stuff in there or not. But, you know, if you're paying them less commission, then maybe it makes sense to give them a lot more, or you're paying them more commission, maybe, you know, have them run around their own rigs. But for us personally, having their own sales car was, you know, was a really big benefit because it was wrapped and it was beautiful, and we got lots of extra leads from a company car being provided.
Yeah, and I'd say the last part of that, it was, you know, where are they going to get their leads from? So
where they get their leads
coming off. Yeah, I would just say that.
I got another answer for that one too.
Okay, my one's super easy. It's almost so easy. It's stupid. Your own customer list. Have them call your current customers and say, hey, we did work for you 6 months ago. Do you happen to know anybody else that would like to receive the service that you did 6 months ago, or whatever it was? Just have them call that list. Like, there you have not infinite leads, but you can start off with at least a lead list of a couple hundred people.
Yeah, that's the lowest hanging fruit, your existing list. One thing I'll add on to that is for every lead that we gave one of our salespeople through our own marketing efforts and marketing spend, we require them to bring back their own lead based upon their own marketing efforts. So what that looked like in the case of my industry is they go out to the customer and they had to knock on all the neighbors' doors and tell them that they were in the neighborhood and bring that lead back with them, an extra estimate request. So for every lead that we bought, in essence, with our marketing, we actually got 2 because we had our salespeople and that was required. And we had big dashboards, dashboards up on there that said what their lead to cold ratio was. And, cold was their own cold generated leads. And I have some cool scripts for, what to say to the next door neighbors in order to get them to do a lead for someone else. It worked really, really good.
That's awesome. That'll be my last question for you, because we have some pros asking where to find more Brandon training videos and scripts. But before we get to that question, Michelle Bonner, who's with us every single night, Brandon, of those 25 employees you hired in 30 days, how many stuck with you?
I say probably about 80% stayed with us for the entire year. There were, we ended up having a lot more than that over the course of time, but we got to the point to where we started getting pretty good. We started getting a pretty good batting average. Definitely not 1,000, which is impossible. But the people who did end up moving on, we actually celebrated them and congratulated them and really set them on their way. And some of those people, grass is greener on the other side, actually realized that grass is greener where you water it, and actually came back. And because of how well we treated them and how gracious we were with them when they, moved on to another job. So make sure you always don't burn bridges with people. Part
Totally
graciously.
agree. One of our, sort of guiding principles is that we want to be a great place to be from at Housecall Pro, right? Like we want, it to be a good thing that you worked for Housecall, and that it's it's like going to a top college on your resume. Like, oh, they work there. They hire really good, smart people over there. Like that's a great company to be from. Not because I want you to leave, but if I think of that as something that I use to help make decisions, I'm going to make the right decisions that I'm going to be proud of if I think about honoring that being a great place to be from.
That's totally our reputation right now too. And I mean, since I worked at Housecall, everyone who knows what Housecall is, at least in the San Diego tech world, they're like, you guys have great people. You guys hire great people. What a cool reputation to have. You can have that too for your service business. It's all about culture.
Yep. Trader Joe's, they hire great people. Everybody knows it.
People want Mel videos too.
Mel, that's why.
Look, it's got
now I know what Housecall Pro is really secret.
Mel.
It is. Mel.
It's a secret weapon.
And then finally, to wrap up, Brandon, do you provide any training and videos for employees, for us contractors? Where can they find those?
Yeah, so we do. So if you go to Automate, Grow, Sell, actually, are you guys okay if I share my screen real quick?
Of course.
Go for it.
AutomateGrowSell.com. This is our website. You can go and you can get a free account all set up. We have a whole bunch of courses that we've made. This Maid Service 911 is a really amazing course. It's completely free. We have a lot of free courses here. But we have a course that, I've done on hiring that goes through, advertising, attracting, interviewing, onboarding, training, developing rock stars, et cetera, all that kind of stuff. But then also don't hesitate to just reach out to me on Facebook. We have a free Facebook group too that we provide extra value to, and we're going through like one of Mike McCallow's. We have like a book club thing, super nerdy business stuff. If you're into nerdy business stuff, then come hit me up on Facebook and we'll connect.
Awesome. Brandon actually brought Elena on, so she is the coach on that Maid Service 911. We've interviewed a lot of people and had a lot of people on the show over the last 8 weeks, and she still hands down is one of my favorite people that we've had on. So if you are in the
definitely
industry, go take that course. And just a note on course taking in general, like you're investing in yourself. You guys invest in yourself by being here. Just because courses cost money, like those are really affordable compared to a lot of the things that are out there. I personally spent so much money on courses during this quarantine, and it's just opened my mind. Like I was at an online summit this weekend about how to be a better interviewer. So things like that. I'm all about the course taking. So
Warren Buffett said the best investment he's ever made was in himself. So that's the best. Anytime he says, what's your best investment advice? He says, invest in yourself.
Can you drop that link, Brandon, in the chat for everyone?
Oops.
Yeah, and we'll also have that link on the blog as well that kind of summarizes some of the key takeaways that we covered today. Also, some of those landmines. So it's very explicit which landmines to go dodge and not step on. So we'll have that in there as well for those of you guys that want to consume that afterwards. And obviously, because you're a registered guest, we're going to send this out to all of you post attending this. So don't you worry. Just look out for an email from us. You'll get all the things that we covered today.
Yes, and there's also summaries for all of our past ones too on the blog. So make sure you guys are going there and taking advantage of those free resources, especially if you didn't have the time to join us live. It's really great, compact key takeaways. So
talking about takeaways, do we get to talk about tomorrow's?
Yes. Well, how about, Mel, you go ahead and announce our guest for tomorrow.
I'm super thrilled. Tomorrow night, we have the CEO of WD-40, Gary Ridge. He is an author, he speaks on leadership, and he actively runs like one of the coolest, most iconic brands on the planet. And he was generous enough to offer some new, I'm gonna let him tell you all about it tomorrow, but everyone who turns in, the first 100 viewers can get a full-size WD-40 product, a really innovative, new, cool product that you're not gonna wanna miss. So tell your friends.
Cool.
Free WD-40 for coming on a Zoom call. Who does that?
Yeah. And we have them in hand.
That's who does it.
Yeah,
they've been delivered to our head of marketing's garage. We have a pallet of WD-40, and it is the coolest thing.
Yes. So please join us tomorrow. Gary is going to be fantastic. We have two more great guests on after Gary this week. We have a guest from Gusto. So they're going to be talking about HR and in employment trends. They're in HR software. So they're going to be coming with some numbers, just like we show you the trades data. We're going to be bringing you something like that with Gusto. And then we have Barbara Corcoran that will be on Thursday's evening broadcast. So if you have any questions, I'm going to make a post in the Facebook group tonight. If you have any questions for Barbara, please submit them to us beforehand. Other than that, thank you, Brandon, for coming back on, a crowd favorite as always. And yeah, if you're looking for Brandon, just look him up in our Facebook group. I'm sure he'd be happy to give you more information on those programs in Conquer. And of course, there's those free trainings he just showed you.
Awesome.
Super helpful.
My pleasure. Thank you guys for having me as always.
Thank you, Brandon. Bye, guys. Catch you guys tomorrow.
Tomorrow for the CEO of WD-40, 5 p.m. Talk to you then.
Bye-bye.